Um, but anyway, we didn't record that part. That was my really bad title. Um, but all right, I'm going to dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're going to start with Sivav, and then Sivav is kind of a hanger-on really from last time. It was very important, but it's so actually for that, I want to start with the Shulchan Aruch, and then we're going to go when we get to Siv Chet, we'll go back to the tour of the Beit Yosef and some of the earlier sources. So, so with that, everyone open to Pei Zayin in your Shulchan Aruch, Seif Vav. And with that, maybe Yavni, for the reward for being here first, you get to read first too. So
Thanks. המעושן והמבושל בחמי טבריה, אין לו קין עליו, וכן המבשל בשר במי חלב, או בחלב מתה, או בחלב זכר, או שבישל דם בחלב, פטור, ואין לו קין על אכילתו משום בשר בחלב. Should I translate?
please, yeah, or just give us a translation for this one.
Okay, so smoked or cooked in the hot springs. For that you don't get lashes. Like if you smoke dairy milk with meat, or if you cook milk with meat but in hot springs, then you don't get lashes for that. And similarly, if you cook meat in milk water, which there's some debate as to what that means exactly.
Yeah, we're going to hold off on that. We're going to get into Mechalav a little bit later. So, but we'll leave it as this thing called Mechalav. Is you don't get well. Keep going.
Or in milk of a dead animal, or in milk of a male animal, or that cooked blood in milk. You are patul, exempt, and you don't get lashes for eating such things.
Great. Before we go into the Ramah,
you don't get lashes for eating such things because of the rule of basar v'chalav. You might get lashes for something else.
Well, good. Well, okay, good. So yes, so some of them may actually have like eating the blood maybe is problematic in its own place. Depends on the blood. But actually, just give us the shach on Yud Gimel because ein lo kinalav, right, is never enough for us. So there's Yud Gimel, Sif Katan Yud Gimel in the shach. Ein lo kinalav.
Ein lo kinalav. Yeah, I should read it or.
Yeah, please go for it.
Aval isura miha'ika. So you don't get lashes, but it is asur. V'chen b'chalav meta isura miha'ika k'delakaman siman. למד? sorry. גבי כחל, וכמו שכתב הרב בהגה בסמוך. וכן, so, and similarly with the milk of the dead animal, there's still an isul of it, even if you don't get lashes. And as we saw in Tzadi about the udder, and the Rama writes in an adjacent part in his comment. Yeah, should I keep going?
Yeah.
וכן כולו דמשמע דאיסורא מיהו איכא אפילו בחלב זכר.
I'm going to stop you there for a minute because we're going to do chalav zachar in a moment after we do the Ramah. All right. So all of these you don't get lashes, but they're asur, right? You can't go to Old Faithful in Yellowstone and put meat and milk together. That milk meat combination is asur. Okay, good. Let's keep going though. Jacob, take the Ramah.
Although you might be able to cook it together. You corrected yourself.
I did. I corrected myself. So many people noticed that. Yes,
I noticed that. You can't eat it, but cooking it, you might be able to.
Yes, yeah. It might not have an isur of hana'a or an isur of bishul, just an isur of achila. It might have, an isur of achila, but not of the other two. So good. And let's do the Haggah here, Jacob. Take it for us.
V'chalav zachar lo mikrei chalav klal. So like milk, like male milk is not called milk at all. Vim nafal l'tok kadera shel basar eno oser. And if it falls into a meat pot, it's not prohibited. Chalav meta umei chalav osrim hamachal kmo chalav atzma. B'afilu l'vishul yesh lesor l'chatchila. Yesh omrim dasor
Okay, I'm
lachtot.
gonna stop there and translate, and then we'll do the Yeshomrim for a minute after that.
Okay, but milk of a dead animal and the like water of milk, where there's debate over what that is one is prohibited from eating, like milk itself. Even with the idea of cooking, there is room to say that's prohibited l'chatchila.
Yeah, but the avad, obviously you haven't violated an isur, but if you shouldn't do it, right? It's not something we should do.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And well, actually, we're not going to see this inside the shach, but on Yud Zayin he says, right, mechalav, right? He gives one at the beginning of the explanation of it. We're not going to get all of it yet, right? It's what remains after you make cheese, right?
Right.
Essentially, the general idea is mechalav is after you get all the ochel out. The question is what counts as the ochel. And that's where the debate's really going to reside. Okay, that's all that. Keep going in the Ramah, though, the Yeshomrim.
Yeshomrim dasor lachtot ha'esh tachat kedera shel oved kochavim lefi shehem mevashlim behem pa'amim chalab pa'amim basar v'amachta tachat kedera shelhem ba'lidei bishul basar v'chalav.
Good. So explain that one.
Those that say that's prohibited to like stoke the fire underneath the pot of non-Jews, since sometimes they're cooking meat, sometimes they're cooking dairy, and so I guess we don't. I know we've had some discussions about assumptions of like Ben Yomo with those pots and stuff like that. So, but because they cook both in it, we act as if there's the isser, or some say we act as if there's the isser of cooking basar v'chalav.
Exactly, right. We're going to see at the end that this might all just be a chumrah, right? But nonetheless, right, it's this idea that a non-Jewish pot has milk in it, cooked in it, has meat cooked in it sometimes, right? There's milk and meat flavor in there, and I'm by stoking the coals, if that's the right thing, by whatever that word is when you turn the fire things over, then you are increasing the cooking, and you are actively cooking the object, right? Might be some interesting things, right? We didn't look at this last time, right? There is some debate about whether or not the basar nevela with milk, like of a tahor animal with milk tahor, but it's a nevela, whether or not there is an isur there and what level that is. It's kind of a different, but for the moment we'll go with this. Ruben, what do you have?
So on the last statement of the Rama, like the issue would be b'diavad, right? Like chatchila, but b'diavad, if you do it, then you wouldn't be chayav.
Yeah, we're going to see that at the end. So
because the language uses pa'amim, they use it for milk, pa'amim they use it for meat, right? And whatever meat or milk is left in there is less than mechalav, I would assume, right?
Oh well, no. But I think he's worried also about the flavor in the pot itself, right? The pot itself is right. The guy.
No, but I'm just saying that the flavoring itself is less than the status of mechalav, right? Because there's
physicality.
There's no physicality to it. It's just
no, Tom. No. It's not the physicality. Tom Okim on my show, right? If I cook gavina in a pot, right, and it has the flavor of gavina, and then I cook meat in it, that's a major problem. That's basar b'chalav there. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Mechalav is not the tam. Mechalav is that you've removed all the ochel from it, and then you have left over just what is essentially water, right? That's a different thing. So hopefully,
does the water hold the tam as well?
Say again.
Does the water hold the tam? Because like if you say the water hold the tam, so then also what?
It probably holds some tam. I don't know if it's tam
right. So then why would it be different? So then you also have.
It's you completely separate it out. It's an interesting question about like I haven't thought about this about like if shal sochto essentially with mechalav, right? Is that like an if shal sochto?
I'm not sure exactly understand the question, but I think I think that there are, there's 7 liquids, there's only different things, like there's blood and there's honey, and I think that the question is, it's not that that I think they're viewing mei halab, which let's say for the sake of argument is whey,
Mhm.
is they're thinking of it as a different liquid. It's like a different liquid. It's not milk. It's not that it has in it the time of milk. It's just another thing. It's like honey or something, some other thing, and the Torah didn't prohibit that thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does to me. But
Yeah.
Then why would you need to bring it up?
why would you
If
need to bring up
it's-
Mechalav?
Because you might
Yeah.
think it's milk.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a.
There's this kind of weird thing that just has the taste of milk, but it's not considered like milk.
But I don't think it really tastes like milk. I don't know. I've never tasted Mechalav, but I don't think it really tastes like milk. Right? So.
Well, I've tasted it. I mean, if you take unsweetened powdered whey powder for like your
Mhm.
for the in the gym, it's very boring taste. It has almost no taste.
Rob Lexi, go for it. You're on mute though.
Yes, sorry. Right, like when the things curdle, right, and you pour that into like a cheesecloth and you're squeezing it out, right? Everything that you're squeezing out is what the Rosh thinks is the mechalav. And it doesn't taste like milk, right? Huh?
I think the Rosh says that that's not mechalav. That the mechalav is only if you've done like a more intensive cheese making process. I believe that was my understanding.
I thought his
I think
thing was that
that's the
like
opinion.
Actually, I want to hold up when we're going to get in is it Chet, I believe, to this question. So let's hold off on this, and then we'll take a look inside of who says what on this. So, but I think you're right about the Rosh, that it's a little bit more intensive, but we'll get there. So, okay, good. So that's I just want to bring us back. No, Reuven, it's a good question, but let's bring us back here for the moment. If you can't, don't play with the flame under the non-Jewish pots. That's part one. And he's got an od. Jacob, keep reading. Od katvu, rather. Sorry, od katvu.
Od katvu de'en larev mayim she'dichu behem kli basar im mayim she'dichu behem chalav v'litein lifnei behema dasurim behana. So they also write that you shouldn't mix water used for washing a meat vessel with water used for washing a dairy vessel and put it be for an animal, because that would be prohibited because of hana.
Good. And this is in the shach, but just I don't want to go into it right now. But right there, washing dishes, right, usually involves really hot water. We're talking about boiling water, not like I turn on my tap, with some water that I can stick my hand under and hold it under there for a while, right? That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about probably like, imagine, I don't know how hot dishwashers get, but it's a whole other thing. But, so really hot water that has the refuse of your halavi meal and your basari meal, right, together, and then you give them to your animals, right? Also, a world where water conservation is being paid much more attention to if they're doing that, right? It's
and a world where there's not enough soap that would be pagam.
Exactly. So.
Od katvu da klish osin bo mayim lechafifat harosh in lesamish bo dosinota me efer she'al hakira uregilut hu letarev sham basar b'chalav. So they also write that like a vessel that's used for water for like washing one's head, not to use it.
They make shampoo in this vessel, right?
Yeah. Since it's made from like dust from ashes that's on the pot, and it's common to mix meat and milk.
Yeah, this is probably some sort of communal, right, oven spake, kira spake, right? Kira is a two slotted range essentially, and the milk and meat gets mixed up there, and so therefore you can't use that pot. It's got a mixture of milk and meat in it. We'll get into in a minute about why I can use the shampoo in the first place, but we're gonna bracket that for the moment. So, all right, good. That's the next one. Keep going.
ולכן יש לאסור גם כן להשתמש מן הקדרות של התנורים שבבית החורף משום דניתזים עליהם לפעמים בשר וחלב מן הכתר שמבשלים בתנורים. Therefore, there's also the opinion that one should prohibit also using anything from the pots of the ovens that are in, not sure what Beit HaChoref is.
I think in the winter that they used to have these like houses where there were fires in them that people would come to warm up, and they would also, cooking would go on there, and people would make pottery there and all sorts of, it was like a place of warmth to do all your warming things in the winter time.
No. Also not sure nitazim, my apologies.
Is spark or
spraying, right?
Spray, that's the word, thank you, yes.
Oh, okay, since sometimes like meat and milk are sprayed.
Yeah.
Laddering.
Just imagine your kitchen. You
cook,
stuff gets everywhere, but now there's like milk and meat being cooked here, and there's pork being cooked here. There's all sorts of crazy stuff, but pork we don't care about hana'ah, right? But we do for milk and meat, right? That's a problem. And then if like somebody is either making a pot in that oven, or they're making some pottery in that oven or something like that, and milk and meat is splashing and it's getting absorbed, right? And you now are getting benefit from milk and meat, right? So that's a problem. Okay.
Yeah. ובדיעבד אין לחוש בכל זה, ואף לכתחילה אין בזה על החומרות בעלמא, והמקל לא הפסיד. And b'diavad, we don't have to worry about all this. And even l'chatchila, these are only chumrot, and what is lenient isn't losing anything.
Yeah, so these are nice ways to stay away from milk and meat, but they're chumrot. So I want to look at two pieces on this. One from the shach, both from the shach, and maybe we can go back to some questions. So maybe I want to start with this whole thing. He says, right, that when they make this shampoo, right, which is soap in their days was made from ashes, that there's often a mixture of milk and meat that's going on there. So why is the shampoo itself not a problem if the k'dera is a or the kli is a problem? So kaf in the shach, Isaac, can you read for us? You're on mute, by the way.
Kaf. Oh, sorry, kaf. Wait. Kaf in the shach. Okay. I think a double column here. ורגילות להתערב שם בשר בחלב, והדלה מצר מהי טעמה לחפיפת הראש, שהרי נהנה משום לרחוץ ראשו, כיוון שאינו דבר של אכילה, לחשיר הנאה, כיוון שאינו נהנה מגוף האיסור, וכמו שהתבאר ברובע, okay, this is all
and all references from there.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not forbidden from this flavor for shampooing your hair. Because the actual benefit you're getting is from the washing of your head.
I think it's like, right, that why isn't it that we say this is a surah? Because you do get hana from washing your head with this, right? That's his question,
okay.
right? And so what's the answer? Fun.
Because it's not something that you eat. So it's not considered hana, which is interesting.
Well, he's kind of got, I don't know if I want to see, there might be two answers, or he might be trying to explain the first answer. I'm not 100% sure. He's got the second, kevan she'eno nehene miguf ha'isur, right?
Right, because we don't benefit from the actual, like we're not actually getting like mamash basar b'chalav. We're getting like the sort of ta'am that's now probably pretty gross that's in the shampoo. And
yeah, I'm not sure that that's what he means by guf ha'isur.
I think we're going to see in those
I think
later
it's just a
simanim.
continuation of the previous sentence.
Right.
Yeah, that's the question, right? Is it kevan she'eno davar shel achila lo chashiva ana kevan she'eno nehene miguf ha'isur, and therefore the guf ha'isur is only for davar achila, or is it he's giving you two different ones? Rav Lexi, is that what you want to say, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it reads much more easily as a continuation of his previous line, that he's just saying, why is it that it's not a problem when it's not a dvar achila? Is that because the guf ha'isur, the way that you derive benefit from this actual isur itself, the actual physical thing is to consume it, and here you're not doing that.
Right, but there's a bit of a fetish here too, right? That there's it's a sort of and that is local, right? It's applying only to the thing that you tend to use this for. That's problematic. It does, like, I don't know if that's the case for like Hana'a from Avodah Zarah or
Well, but I think also
other
the point, right, is that like you're not benefiting from it by it being basar v'chalav, right? It's some ashes, right? His whole point is that like the whole thing of basar v'chalav is the fact of it being food, is the fact of it being like a consumable thing, and you rubbing ashes that at some point technically were basar and chalav into your hair is just not basar v'chalav, right? It's just like not really, it's not, just doesn't touch upon the category that we're talking about ultimately.
Yeah, no, that's one of the ways I'm reading. I'm not 100% convinced. Maybe somebody else. Sarah, go for it.
Yeah, I just keep thinking about like how this case relates to the case of the dishwater that you're then giving to your animals, and whether, right, because that does seem to be achila of some kind for your animal, and I don't know whether that makes it more or less achila the way the Shach is like categorizing things. It does seem like the animal benefits from Gufa Yisur to the extent that Gufa Yisur is present at all, which again, like, leaves me only with confusions. And then, but the idea that like, yeah, I don't know. I just like these distinctions become like either they're supposed to travel together, in which case I guess they kind of help me understand how this case is different from the animal water case. But I found it confusing to figure out how whether he was saying two conditions that are the same, and like one is a kind of explanation of the other, or they're two separate things.
Yeah,
it seems like it ought to be able to explain to me why the animal water case is a problem.
Yeah,
and the case is not.
Good, Ruben. I'll go for a couple more on this because
well, you could argue that in the case of dishwater, the Gufa Yisur is still present, right? Well, in the case of shampoo, like it's being burnt to ashes, there's no Gufa Yisur left over. Like there is nothing left. There's no remnants of like basar v'chalav in a way.
No, but I don't think it's the Go ahead, Yavni, go for it.
No, but yeah.
I thought we were talking about like taking the thing where we got the ashes out of and filling that with water, like rinsing it out with water afterward, and then feeding that water to the animals.
No, I think
no.
You're talking about the water. Yes, that's correct. So
right, like you're taking the pot, like rinsing it out and filling it back
it's two different cases. The first one is you rinsing pots, like
I'm just saying they should.
Sure.
The criteria from the Shach talking about the like shampoo case, like I was trying to understand those criteria better by trying to apply them to the like dishwater animals case to like get an answer of Asur to see how those like criteria were working, and I like
because it is a matter of eating, but he doesn't say bigla she'eno ochlo. He doesn't say it's because you're not eating.
No.
He says it's not a matter of eating. It's not in a context of eating, but in the animal case, it is a context of eating. And I would even say that the word eating could be translated as consumption, in which case it's not being consumed. And by the animals, it is being consumed.
Okay, so it'd be permitted only to wash your hair. But let's take a silly example. When you take the shampoo and you feed it to your animals, technically that would be forbidden. Yeah.
Well, so I was actually
but is there
about...
Gufa Yisur in the animals case? Is the idea that the answer to that is yes? Okay.
Yeah.
Just clarify.
I think the one thing I was wondering about, like a difference is what if like a lotion or a salve that is absorbed into your skin, right? Is that there? Are you benefiting from the Gufa Yisur? I don't know.
Well, yes, you are.
Yeah.
From Rosh Hashanah,
but I think
for Yom Kippur.
I think that's
Yom
why
Kippur,
it makes
it's
way...
considered eating.
Yeah.
Right? Anointing with oil on Yom Kippur is considered a kind of eating.
Is it considered a kind of eating?
It's not considered a kind of eating.
That they're both Asur.
Yeah,
it's Asur. It is very much not considered eating. It's a whole other category that's forbidden, but it's not considered to be consuming something. And I think again that like, yes, obviously, if you read these as two separate answers, then that would be a problem. I just don't think that's the pshat reading. And according to the understanding that it's because you're not benefiting from it by it being basar v'chalav, then whether you're rubbing it into your hair or absorbing it into your skin, you're not like, wow, some basar v'chalav-y lotion being like it. The fact that it's basar v'chalav is essentially just irrelevant to you when it's something that you are not consuming, right? That you are just not relating to it vis-a-vis what its Isser is. And like Alan and I were talking about the difference between this versus like other Isserei Hana'ah, like say like, Isserei Hana'ah because of Avodah Zarah, right? Like if this pen was worshipped as an idol, right, then like anything that I do with this pen, I am interacting with the physicality of this thing that was worshipped as an idol, and that's a problem, right? And that's why it's Asr B'Hana, whereas Basar B'Chalav is located in the notion of cooking and consumption. And like putting a lotion on your skin is just not part of that kind of world that the Isser is located in.
So,
Well, I mean,
great.
the
So,
lotion gets absorbed into the skin.
yeah.
That's
So
not eating.
Right,
so
but
here's
not
my
in your
challenge.
stomach, so it's different.
Here's my challenge on all of this for everybody. And this is maybe on me because I didn't look this up ahead of time, but I did think about it. So is a challenge for either later in the week or maybe over Pesach when you have some time to learn, is take a look, see if anyone quotes the Shach in a tshuva, and see how they use it. Because I'm very curious now if, because we may get a sense of how they read the Shach. I think my personal instinct is that the way that a lot of you are reading it, which really reflects is the big push on this one, is that it's the kevan she'eno nene me'aguf is explaining is eno davar shel achila. It's one continuous thought, but I'm very curious to see how others read it, and if anyone thinks that my other reading is crazy or not. So okay, any good. That's a good discussion on that. Anything else that I wanted to do? Oh yeah. No. Go ahead.
Can I get your read? Can I get a very clear read on what the Rama is saying when he says "Od katvu da kli shosin bo mayim lachafifat harosh"? That section, what it means.
Oh, I think what it's saying is that you can't. So I guess you can use that shampoo. You can't cook with that dish because it's made.
Okay, so when it says "ein lishamesh bo," it means you can't use it for cooking food in.
Yeah, I
what the
imagine
shamesh bo means.
Well, it might even be a chumrah even beyond the cooking. It may just be don't use that bowl at all, right? That's
I mean, it's describing a use of it, like it's used to catch the ashes, and then you use the ashes, like what?
Yeah, because that is now a basar b'chalav bowl essentially, right? And so like don't use it for anything, right?
But you are using it for those for collecting the ashes for the
shampoo. No, I think somebody else is making the shampoo. You're using the shampoo.
Oh, so this is someone else's. Oh, I see. Someone else is using, and then you can use the shampoo that was made in it, but don't use that vessel for anything else. Okay.
Yeah. So this is you go into the Beit HaChoref, don't use that vessel for anything. And of Nachum, I see you. Oh, okay. So it is actually like it's a really, and this we're going to get a lot of this in the Ramah. We've already had a lot of this, right? Is sometimes he's describing a reality that's hard for us to understand what exactly was going on in their world, and I'm not 100% sure about all of these things. This is kind of just guesswork on my part. So, and on your part too, I guess. So unless
Hold on a second, just to make sure that I understand, right? As it relates to the explanation of the Shach, you wouldn't be able to use that keli only for eating, right? But if you want to use the keli for anything else, so then it's not usher.
Well, yeah, if I stored my pencils in it, would probably be fine. I don't know. Maybe it would, because here's the thing, and this may actually get to the shampoo thing again, right? Maybe it's that the shampoo itself doesn't really have basar b'chalav in it because it's like a secondary thing from the goof of the isur, which is actually in the kli. And maybe you don't touch the kli at all, but maybe the shampoo, right, which is a secondary, it's really a not bar not kind of situation with the shampoo in some ways. He doesn't say that, but I wonder if it's a similar idea.
Well, I mean, when you make the shampoo, you're not an enemy or either, right? So you should be able to use the pot. It's not just to make shampoo,
No,
but you wouldn't.
It's assumed that pot has milk and meat combined in the walls of it, right? That we are assuming. So we're assuming that everything that gets cooked in this Beit HaChoref is just has like milk and meat in it. And milk and meat is splashing all around this place, right? It's an uncontrolled milk meat environment.
The description of the Beit HaChoref seems to be the next thing. Doesn't necessarily apply to this. But...
Oh, you're right. That may not actually be in the Beit HaChoref. So it maybe just be. I think we assume that non-Jewish kitchens in general are milk and meat, cesspools, shall we say? Good. I'm open to more, but I do want to press on just because we have a few more things I'd like to cover. So I want to just do Sif Zayin in the Shulchan Aruch. Maybe Alice, you want to read for us?
המבשל שליל בחלב חייב, וכן אוכלו, אבל המבשל שיריה, או אור וגידים ועצמות ועיקר העיקרנים, וטלפים הרקים פטור, וכן אוכלם פטור. Okay, so there are several things true about so shlil is something with it's not with the fetus, right? It's something
It is the
with,
fetus. Yeah.
It's the fetus.
The fetus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's shlil bechalav, so it's chayav. The same thing with eating it. Hamevashel shilia is like the placenta.
But I just want to pause you there. Right? Mashel shalil bechalav chayav v'chein ochlo. Right. This is like an isur gamur here of
right for bishul and for achila. And okay. Aval hamevashel shilia.
Placenta.
This is placenta. Okay, so I thought so. Okay, or vegidim, right? Or skin and gidim, the bones, or the horns.
The kind of the base of the horn, shall we say?
Okay, and the lafim harakim.
Hoofs, the soft.
Oh, the hoofs. Okay, so that one is patur. Because obviously it doesn't resemble to meat that much. And also the one who eats them is patur.
Good. And just read the Shach Kafbet for us, just in case we missed this. Patur aval.
Patur v'chen ha'ochram hachinami isura mihaika. Right, of course it's patur, it's asur aval patur, but it's still forbidden.
Exactly. Like in so many cases, including like in Shabbos and all that, is right, patur aval asur. You can't do this, but it's patur. So, okay, that's all that we're about to shift.
Sorry, just a quick question. So, what's the havamina that a shlil would have been patur? Like, why? What does the Shulchan Aruch need to come and make the?
Oh, because it's
the shlil is chayav.
Right?
Yeah, it is chayav. But what's the havamina? Well, like, why do you need to tell us that it's chayav? It seems pretty obvious to me, at least.
Because it's not alive. It was never a live animal.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the basar of the animal,
but it still has the texture and it still looks like meat. I mean,
a shalil has all sorts of different rules in terms of for instance, it doesn't require shchita if it's actually that might be the reason to say it is part of the animal, but that there are all these things are parts of the animal that are maybe not part of the basar of the animal itself, and therefore you would assume don't fall under basar b'chalav. Some of them don't, like the hooves, and some of them do, like the shalil. So.
And I mean, it goes back to the eggs as well, right? Like we had this discussion of when is an egg meat, and then when does it become this parv, like separate egg? And I think that's part of a larger, like, we have things within an animal's body that can transition from being part of the body, or in the case, or from one state to another. In the case of the egg, from part of the body to its own thing, and in the case of the fetus, well, I guess it becomes its own thing at birth. But
when it's born, yeah, that's
But doesn't this specifically just come from Shmuel's Memra, where he just says
it does? Yeah. So I don't. He doesn't give a reason, right? He just says it's asur. So it's it's a great point, Jessica. Right?
Well, he drushes it from the three mentions of
loads of Ashel.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, he doesn't explain exactly why he's getting those ones.
So because the Torah says that's good enough. But because Shmuel says, the Torah says, so great. Okay, good. Those are all right. Those are all kind of side things, but now we're about to shift to some more stuff on the milk itself. And so I want to go, sorry, I'm going to pause. How are we doing on time? Any questions, any thoughts before we move on to Chet? Everyone turn back to the tour. All right. And we'll get to this question that we actually came up earlier, and we'll dive into it a little bit here. So maybe Ruben, can you read Chet in the tour for us?
Just give me 1 second. I just have to get there first. But, וכתב אדוני אבי הראש דנסיובי דחלבה אינם בכלל מחלב ואסור מן התורה. אלא מחלב היינו אחר שהוציא מן החלב כל האוכל. כגון לאחר שעשו כל הגבינה, מבשלים החלב והאוכל צף מלמעלה ולא נשאר בו אלא מים בעלמא, זהו הנקרא מחלב. So he's basically been giving us an explanation as to what is considered mechalav, right? So it's basically whatever is left over after you took out all the food.
Good. Well, let's actually play this out, right? Nisovei dechalva, which is the whey, right? After you separate the curds out, you have the whey remains, right? Curds are used for cheese making. You have this whey, which, as Rav Nachum pointed out, gets used made into like protein powder, gets added to things, and so forth. That, right, is according to not mechalav, right? And that's asur min Torah, obviously with meat, right? But the mechalav is after the cheese making process. Then you have the whey left over, and then you do another cooking on it, or do a cooking on it, and then all the stuff that comes to the top you scrape off, and then
whatever's left over is the mechalav.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's actually how you make ricotta traditionally. It's like
ricotta is that second stuff that
you can make it like from milk directly, but like in commercial stuff that you use it to get something more out of what's left.
Great. So that's very helpful. So you're right. So here we go already. This is maybe a point in the Rosh's corner, that even after you have the whey, you can still make actual type of cheese out of it. There's still enough stuff in there. Good. I want to read the Beit Yosef on this too, and then maybe we'll open it up a little bit. So maybe Ruben, can you read the Beit Yosef, which is in my version Vav Bet and Chet V'chatav Aroni Avei Harosh.
בפרק כל הבשר, הדתניא המבשל במי חלב פתוח, וכתב התוספות דאיסורא מיה עיקר, דהא קותח מנסיובי דחלבה, הבדלי כדאיתא פרק אלו עוברים, ואמרינן לאל דאסור לאכול בשר בקותח, כתב על זה, ואני אומר דניסובי מן התורה אסירי, והדתניא דפטור במי חלב, היינו לאחר שהוציאו מן החלב כל האוכל וכו'. עד כאן, ואפשר דאיסורא דרבנן מיהה, דאיסורא דרבנן מיהה עיקר, לבשל בו בשר מדקתני פטור ולא קטני מותר.
Good, explain.
Do you want me to translate?
Translate, why not?
Okay, so in Perek Kol HaBasar, it says המבשל במחלב פטור, whoever cooks in מחלב is פטור, and Tosfot says there, דאיסורא מיהה עיקר, Kutach minisube de chalav. There is a yisur because kutach is made out of this remnant of milk, like it's explained in Perek Elu Avrim, and then we also taught somewhere else that asur lechol basar bekutach, that you can't eat basar in kutach. And ואני אומר, and I said nisube min Torah asire, that this how would you translate nisube?
I'm calling it whey at the moment. So
that's what Joshua said. Yeah.
Yeah. That way is asur min Torah, והדתניא דפטור במי חלב, היינו לאחר שהוציאו מן החלב כל האוכל. And when we said that, it's basically saying like the tour that when we said that it's permitted to cook in mechalav, it's after that we basically took out all the food that's left over and there's only water left.
Exactly.
But it's possible that there's still Isur de Rabbanan. Why? Because it says it says permitted, but it's not says mutar. Basically,
it doesn't say permitted, it says exempt, but not mutar.
Exempt,
right?
but not mutar, exactly.
So it doesn't say it says exempt, but it doesn't say that it's mutar. Therefore, it might be that there's actually an Isur de Rabbanan on this. So just general takeaway, right? According to the Tosfot and the Rosh, the whey is milchik, shall we say, is a sort of cook with basar, deoraita, right?
No, I think that's the Rosh, but not the Tosfot.
Is it the...
Or sorry,
no, it's
maybe
the Tosfot. It's the Tosfot and the Rosh, I think, gets it from the Tosfot. So, right? Kutach means right? Because they say kutach is made from whey, and you can't cook kutach.
Right, therefore, I'm sorry, yeah, go ahead.
So this is what the Beit Yosef is doing. Is actually a great point. Yeah, he's giving the derivation of where the Rosh got this from, right? He's getting it from which is, I think, so it is. He might actually be quoting the Rosh here in this, but I think he is. He is quoting the Rosh. So. But,
I think there is a distinction between the Rosh and the Tosfot here. I think the Tosfot here says that the Tosfot here doesn't bring in this category, right? For the Tosfot, Mei Chalav is nisyuvi, is the way, and they say that there's an isur, it's asur aval patur, and then Tosfot, that's my understanding. The isur מבשל במי חלב פטור איסור מהאיכא דהקותח מניסיובה. So that's why it's asur. And then the Rosh comes and says, wait a minute, that's
Okay.
not, the mei chalav is
Yeah.
a different thing. The nisyuva, we do need, the nisyuva is not even patur. It's like asur deoraita. It's just like milk. And then whereas whereas like mei chalav, which they were talking about in the Gemara, is not. And then the Beit Yosef clarifies it's not clear what the Rosh thinks about that mei chalav if it's patur. Then Beit Yosef clarifies that maybe that like brings in the chumrah of the Tosfot at the level of the Rosh to say like even the mei chalav that's like really mei chalav by the definition of the Rosh should still be asur patur asur.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think the Tosfot are on the Mechalav are saying that there must be an Isura because we know that Kutach is made from whey and it's Asur. And the Rosh is actually, I think, right, that the whey itself is Asur min Torah and is not Mechalav. And Mechalav itself, and then it's the Beit Yosef who comes in, I believe, and says that.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Yeah.
So I just want to bring that. Great, thank you for that clarification. 3 levels. Tosfot thinks Mechalav is Asur, right? Although maybe Patur. They think Michalav is Nisyu de Chalva, right? And that is Asur, although maybe it's Patur. The Rosh think, and Mechalav, the Rosh says, I don't even think it's Mechalav, it's a different category. That's Asur Diaraita. And the Beit Yosef comes in and says, yes, and even Mechalav itself, right, is probably Asur Dirabanan. So, but great.
So yeah, just to make sure that I understand your comment, what would be considered Mechalav for Tosfot, sorry?
As for Tosfot, they think it is whey, right?
Whey is Mechalav, right? Okay.
Yes, the Rosh thinks that it's not whey. It's that it is the next step in the process after whey. So,
perfect.
Yeah,
and the Torah agrees with that as well, right? It's the next step after whey.
Exactly.
It's okay, perfect.
So good. And I just wanted to see how let's take a look at flip over to the Shulchan Aruch. Let's take a look how he paskins on this. Pei Zayin, Het, and maybe I'll read it. Why not? So it's kind of a fun little thing. Yesh mi shomer nisyuve de chalva enam bichlal mechalav ve'asur min Torah. Right, that's the Rosh. Ela mechalav hainu achar shosim agvina mevashlina nisyove ve'aochal saf milamala ve'lo nishar bo ela mayim be'alma zeo nikra mechalav. Right. So exactly the Rosh's position. So. He doesn't, by the way, it's like a fascinating piece in the Chaber. He says, Yesh mi shomer. He doesn't give us the other opinion though, right? It's a given that there is another opinion out there that thinks that the way is mechalav, and therefore patur, and goes back to seif, I think it was vav. So, okay, good. Now we're any final, how are we doing on time? That's good. Any questions, thoughts?
Just one last question. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around the whole concept. So, assuming that you define mechalav through the lens of the Torah, right? What would happen if you reboil that mechalav? It still remains mechalav forever? Or like, does it acquire like a new status?
But I think once it's mechalav, you've taken off all the stuff, and then you have mechalav left, right? So.
Right, but let's say you were to reboil that water over. And
you think, and there's still stuff coming off of it, you mean?
Yeah.
So is it like fully mechalav?
Yeah.
Did you fail at it? I don't have an answer.
I'm sorry, it's an odd question, but I've been like, yeah. Sorry,
yeah, I don't know enough about the actual process to tell you like, does that happen or so, yeah. An interesting question. Like, did you not fully make it mechalav in the first step? So good. That's beyond me. Someone maybe can look and answer that. So, all right. We're gonna switch gears here a little bit. Give me 1 second. Do I have screen sharing capabilities? Take a look.
Wait, just one quick point. He says in Vav, he does say in Vav that he does refer to mechalav without defining it.
Yeah.
And now he's after that is saying yesh mi shomer, that what I told that what we all think of as mechalav is not really mechalav. That's really nisyova the chalva.
Yeah. But he says yesh mi shomer, right? He doesn't.
In other
which
words,
I
the other side was said in Vav, is what I'm saying, and that was and it was presumed that Mechalav is just 2 stages.
is just the way. So
Right.
after, yeah, but okay, I can deal with that. That's, okay, I want to shift to some Gemara. I'm going to share my screen, and let me just make sure I open both of them. Yeah, let's see if I can do this. People who want to follow along in their own. We're going to start with Hulin Kuf Tet Zayin Amud Aleph, and we're going to go to the next daf as well. Let's see, can I zoom in a little bit here? Maybe can people see that okay? Good. Sarah, can I enlist you to read? Starting with the Mishnah at the bottom of the Amud.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to do this in my own screen separately, and it was not actually working, so I will stick with yours. Okay. Kevad oved kochavim v'shel nevela harezo asura hama'amid be'or shel keva kshera.
Good. And now I gotta hold on.
Page, please.
Unfortunately,
like I'm in like an old lecture hall saying slide.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually have it. Okay, I actually have that Amud up on my computer. If you want me to just keep reading.
I want to bring it back up for people though. So. Okay. I didn't do it very well. Let's try this. Okay. Can I scroll? Yeah, there we go. Go. Is that the same? I opened the same one. You keep reading. I'm gonna.
Okay, I'm just gonna. I have like Surata Daf and Merkava. If someone wants to find it in that mechanism, they're most welcome to. Here.
Let's use that. Everyone go to it themselves. I'm not going to try and play this screen. So, all right, I'm going to pull out my own copy here.
Im yesh benoten tam, harezu asura. Kshera shenika min hatrifa, kevata asura. Trifa shenika min hakshera, kevata muteret. Mibnei shekones b'mea. So, okay, now I don't remember the first definition, but you can't essentially make whatever is in the stomach of the cow. You can't use that to make cheese, but if you have a if there is enough to impart flavor from the stomach to the
Good, well, let's go back. I'll go back a little bit.
What's the difference between keva and orsha?
Yeah, good. We're gonna get
good. Right. That's it.
Yeah. The Rashi. I just want to point out the Rashi at the beginning of the Mishnah. He says keva zeu chalav karush shebetocha keva. Right, which is really keva is the milk in the keva. So I just want to the term that we're going to understand this Mishnah is there are two things. There is the milk inside the stomach, the forestomach actually of the animal, right? The abumazum, I think it's called, right? Which is so I'm actually back up. The forestomach of a ruminant, some have more than 4, but the final stomach of a ruminant, right, has when they're very young and they're still suckling, they have rennet in it in the stomach. Okay, the rennet is able to curdle the milk into cheese. As to the way that they're able to digest it.
We're talking about a calf.
Exactly.
And he's got milk in his stomach. And we're talking about that kerneled, semi-digested milk.
Exactly. And so there's 2 ways to make cheese using this to get the rennet. One is to take the curdled milk in the stomach and add that to other milk and make cheese out of that. Right? That is a rennet. The other way is to use the actual stomach itself, what we're going to call the orha keva. It's going to be confusing because the Torah is not going to use them the same way, but we're going to the ora keva, which is you can actually take the stomach and cut it up. Well, you can probably just do it in the stomach itself, but you can also cut it up into pieces and throw it into the milk to your milk, and that will curdle it. Okay, so this Mishnah, right, says that if you have the milk in the stomach, this curdled milk, this karush milk in the stomach of a non-Jewish animal owned by a non-Jew, a kosher animal, or a nevela, right? That's asur. You can't use it, right? And also if you try to make cheese in the stomach itself of this animal, it's kashera, right? But if it gives tam of the basar of the stomach, then it's asur, right? And then the other things is if we have a kosher animal that nurses from a non-kosher animal, let's say a treifa, right? A treifa animal, not treifa is like the general term, but actual treifa, right? Then the milk in its stomach is asur to use, and the treifa, though, that nursed from a kosher animal, the milk in its stomach is mutar because it doesn't. All it is collecting the milk from the kosher animal in its stomach, right? It itself is not something from the treifa animal. All right, we with everyone with me there on the Mishnah? So, okay.
And presumably it doesn't say anything about the orkeva of a treifa, but presumably that is asur.
Good. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
exactly. Yes, you're right. Good point. It's giving you the mutter ways, except
the beginning,
sort of
right?
implying when the question really is, why is keva shel a goy and shel a nevela? Why is that asur? That's the interesting question, because yeah, that's interesting.
Well, so let's I'm trying to think if we should do this whole thing or not, just based on time. But
I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea.
You think it's a good idea? Great. All right, maybe I'll read a little bit of Gemara. Is everyone's following me since I'm not sharing my screen anymore? Everyone's got the Gemara? Okay, great. I'll read a little bit, right? Atu kevato vedkochavim lav nevilahi. Wait a second. When we had, remember at the beginning of the Mishnah, we had two categories. We had the kevato vedkochavim and we had nevilah, right? Aren't those the same thing? Amar Rav Huna, right? Hacha belokeach gedimino vedkochavim askina. No, we're talking about what happens is I go to a non-Jew and I buy, a cow from them, right? Or I take a cow from them. Right? And I'm concerned that maybe it suckled from a treifa animal, right? And therefore the keva, which we're defining as the liquid or the curdled liquid in its stomach, is really from a treifa, right? That's not. Right, wait a second. I have a rule that I don't assume that things just came from treifa animals, right? That I can buy eggs from non-Jews and there's no worry, right? Neither for nevela or treifa. So we're actually kind of stating the Mishnah, right? Or stating the explanation of the Mishnah is we're concerned that maybe this animal nursed from a non-kosher animal. So the cow that I bought from the non-Jew, maybe it nursed from a pig. I don't know. Wild story, but maybe that's a possibility. All right. So why are we concerned that it nursed from a temeah, not concerned that it nursed from a treifa, right? Treifa is actually an important rule. Treifa la shlicha, temeah shlicha, right? A treifa is not common, right? We don't assume things are treifa; they're an uncommon occurrence. We do assume, though, that there are non-kosher animals around, right? All right, right? But wait a second, if non-kosher animals are hanging around all over the place, why aren't we concerned our animals suckled from non-kosher animals? Right? Because we separate for them. Right? Lo gazrubahu rabanan. So because we try to keep them apart, right? We see a pig come onto our farm, we're going to separate it out. We're going to keep it away, right? And therefore we don't have a concern so therefore there's no gezerah of the Rabbanan. Inhu delo b'dilei minehu, but them they don't keep away from. They don't care if there's a pig on their farm. So they see a pig running around amongst the calves. They don't care. They're not going to separate them. Gazru b'hen Rabbanan. So there's a rabbinic gezerah against it, and so and therefore if you buy an animal from a non-Jew, you can't use the milk in its stomach to make cheese because of the fear that it nursed from it suckled from a temeah. Okay, but here's the important. Shmuel amar chada katani. Shmuel says no. We only taught that nevela and kevat oved kochavim are. It's one thing that they're teaching here, right? Kevat shchitat oved kochavim nevela. We're teaching that the keva of the slaughtered animals of the Ovdei Kochavim is a nevela, right? Umi amar Shmuel hachi. Did Shmuel really say this? V'amar Shmuel mipnei ma asru gvinat Ovdei Kochavim. Shmuel said, why did we say that the cheese of non-Jews is asur? Because they make the cheese using the stomach of the keva of the nevela. Hakeva gufa sharia. Therefore, the keva itself must be permitted. La kasha kan kodem chazara kan leachar chazara. Right. No, there's one statement. The statement, as we're going to see, of the Mishnah is before they retracted, saying that it was Asur. And here it's after the Chazara, after they retracted, saying it's Asur. And therefore, we're going to see, we follow Shmuel, who says that the keva of a non-Jew's animal and nevila is actually permissible. So this retraction comes from a Mishnah. I actually gave it to you guys in Avodah Zarah. But I don't want to dive into it. Instead, I want to dive into the Tosfot, and then into a Rashi, like maybe the longest Rashi ever. And then a couple more Tosfots, all good stuff. So let's just a pause about the Gemara there. Oh, before we do that, I just want to bring everyone down in the Gemara a little bit. If you go at the bottom of the Amud is the Mishnah, and if you go up from the Mishnah, 3 lines, V'hilchata. Everyone see there? V'hilchata ein mamidim be'or kevat nevila, aval mamidim bekevat nevila u'kevat shlitat oved kochavim. Right? And the halacha is we don't make cheese in the stomach or with the stomach of the curdled milk of make the stomach of an avela, but we do use the curdled milk of an avela and an animal that was shechted by a non-Jew. That's hilchata. We'll see. Not all versions of the Gemara have that though, so which is going to be a big question. Okay, so we follow Shmuel achara hachazara,
because that actually it's interesting you say that it doesn't, that all Gemaras don't have it, because that supports the idea that this is a addition by the Gaoni.
Yes, yeah. It's someone once told me that almost every case of hilchata, this is like a Rav, like YU actually, he told me that every case, I don't know if it's true, every case of hilchata in the Gemara is really a Gaonic.
I think the idea is that when it says hilchata, but it's not like Amar of Ashi.
Oh yes.
That, like when you have hilchata as a statement of the Amora, it usually is native to the Gemara, but when it just comes
right, and also right,
some academics think it was just always a Gaonic insertion.
Yeah. Also, if there's no discussion after, sometimes you see a hilchata and then they say a discussion afterward. Say, is it really?
Yeah.
So then it's
that's
also
clearly,
not.
Well, that's clearly the Amoraim talking about it, right? That's
so then,
yeah. So okay. So a couple. I want to start with the Tosfot. Let's see who hasn't read. Maybe Alan, you want to read the first?
Let's take a break now.
Great. And then
I think it's a great place to take a break, and I think it's yeah.
So,
right.
Perfect. Zayin. Oh, we're starting already. Everyone, come back. We're going early. This is good. So. That was
I thought you were starting, but if
Mixata.
You're gonna do that. We should do that Rashi nice and slow. I think it's
we're gonna do. We may not do the whole thing, but there's a huge portion of it I'd like to do just to kind of get.
Because we need to understand like the conceptual difference and why the halachic difference between the or keva and the keva.
Yeah. So, all right, and Alan's gonna do it for us. So, Harezo Asura. So just to remind people, we're on Kuf Ted Zayin Amud Bet. This is the second Rashi on the Amud, and this is on the Mishnah, right? He says, right, if you use the or hakeva, hamamid beor shel keva, kshera, right? In yesh benotentam harezo asura. But if it gives flavor, then it's asura.
And if it doesn't give flavor, the interesting point is, even though it's ma'amid,
it's
the
mutar.
cheese, it's kosher. It's kosher.
Yeah. So, but
of course, it's not. We don't know if it's mutter to do, but it's certainly kosher.
Yeah. So here we're going to get it from Rashi. He's going to be very helpful with all the concepts here. Alan, Harezo Asura, please.
Okay, Harezo Asura. V'chalav hanimtza karush be'or hakeva shemalichin ota be'ora ben shenotnin ima chalav acher uben shemalichin ota ima nira be'enai as iser gamor kebasar b'chalav mamash le'asor hagbina Gbina Iser Gamor.
Good.
Okay.
I actually do 4 more words. 4 more words. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this milk that is all totally congealed in the skin of the stomach, but you're salting the skin in it. Whether we put milk with another milk with it, or whether we salt with it the skin, right?
Mhm.
Seems to me it's totally assur, just like real basar b'chalif. The cheese is completely assur, and
Yeah.
I can't. There's no way they can matter it, which is a weird
Great.
thing. But
So, and by the way, I just want to say that when he says be'orah, right, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have the stomach and you do this in the stomach. It could also be you cut up pieces of the stomach and you throw it in with. I'm getting this from a later shach, but right, it's another method of doing this is you salt it with pieces of the stomach in like a vat. Kind of idea, which is another way of you don't actually have to like just leave it in the stomach. But right, this is you take the karush, what we're calling the keva, right, and you have it with the stomach, and you salt them together. That's asur gamor.
What does it mean you salt them together? You're doing a salting. Why are you salting it? To make the meat kosher?
No, the salting is a method of cheese making, actually, apparently. So I think this was very common. I think did I send something out? Maybe I'll just let me just read this. Actually, I mean I can share it. This was.
Yeah, and I think it's just that like it's an essential part of almost any cheese making that like there is some amount of salting. Certainly in some it's incredibly highly concentrated amounts. So like you'd be salting the milk that if especially if it's like
so, and if you wouldn't salt it, and if you would just try to make it without putting salt there, then it would be mutter.
Well, as in
If not,
the
that's
argument would be if it was less than if it wasn't there for 24 hours, right? That if
Mhm.
it's there for 24 hours or more, then it becomes kavush. But that if there's no salting and no kavush, right? That if it's under 24 hours, then you wouldn't have meaningful enough flavor transfer.
Yeah, it's as if you're cooking them together is Rashi's issue here. So okay. Let's keep going. Because there's Rashi's going to explain why some people think this is mutar and why he doesn't agree. So keep going.
Okay, so some people who say it's okay, and their proof is from fish that get into a dish.
Okay, so actually, I want to say alu bekara, the way we're going to stand it for the moment, although this is going to be when we get to not bar not, we'll get more into what exactly happened, is these fish were cooked in a meat, or at least interacted at a hot temperature with a meat vessel. Okay, so.
Okay. שמותר לאכלן בכותח משום דהבה לנותן טעם ונותן טעם. שחלב הגבע לא נאסר אלא משום נתינת טעם. וכי הדר יהב טעמה בגבינה, וכי הדר יהב טעמה בגבינה, הבה לנותן טעם ונותן טעם.
Good. Actually, I'll stop there because Rashi's going to comment on this in a second. But this is right. What's the reason that people matir? Right. So I salt. Go ahead.
Right. So it's not barnat, meaning the only reason that the milk that's in the stomach is bad is because it's gotten flavor from the ore that's gone. I'm sorry that we're talking about the fish now.
No, we're talking about the ore. We're talking about the ore.
We're back, right? The only reason that the milk that's in the stomach is also because of the ore that's gone into it, and so therefore it doesn't have the ability to give taste to the cheese
or give significant taste, right? It's weak, tam chalash, right? That's their argument. They say, sorry, we're in the Rashi on Kuf Tet Zayin Amud Bet. We're I don't know a little bit down, yeah. So in other words, right? People argue that what's happening. Let's say I salt the keva, the curdled milk with the ora keva, right? Or as Rav Lexi said, we'll see this come later up in the tour in the Beit Yosef, or I leave it in there for 24 hours, right? So it's a cooking process. And then if I then add it to other milk to make cheese, oh, well, that's actually really just, you get the keva got the tam from the ore, and now it's giving the tam, it's a secondary flavor. It's not barnat. That's not really a problem. That's what people argue, right? Rashi's going to decimate that in some ways. So keep going.
Right. ורחוקות זו מזו כרחוק מזרח ממערב. מה הייתמה? דגים שאלו בקרה, אף על פי שבעלו את טעמה, עדיין התר גמור הן לאוכלן, שבא לאוכלן בכותך.
שבא לאוכלן בכותך, למה אתה עושה?
למה אתה עושה?
Mhm.
מפני טעם בשר. שלא אהבו טעם בשר, לאו הוא טעם. לאו טעם הוא.
Yeah.
Right.
Keep going. שהרי לא בא מן הממש.
שהרי לא בא מן הממש, אלא מן נתון טעם אחר.
Good. Okay.
Right. So, in the Dagim case, even though they did absorb the taste, it's still totally fine to eat them when they get into the kutach, because the reason that you're osering them is because of the taste of the meat that's in that got into the fish. Sorry,
so I'm going to back you up a little bit, Alan, here a little, right?
Go for it. Yeah.
Is when you cook the fish in the meat pot, right? The fish are not asur; they're completely mutar, right? You haven't done anything asur at this point. And then when you mix them with the kutach, okay, then it's not real flavor. It's time. This didn't come from the mamash. That's why that's allowed, right? This is what we call not behetera, right? That it's that every step of the way was beheter. Okay, but this case, when you'd use the ora keva, it's going to be you salt in the ora keva, it's going to be different. So keep going. We're actually elamidot tam acher aval chalav hanimlach b'basar. Pick up there.
Aval chalav hanimlach b'basar. Right, but in our case of the milk that's being salted with the meat, when they're giving when one's getting flavor from the other, they're both becoming a single unitary ester of basar b'chalav. Right, Siman holds for basar b'chalav.
Rashi may hold it for all cases, but at least everyone holds it for this case. So good.
Right. וכל טעם היוצא עוד מן החלב, בין טעם חלב שבו, בין טעם בשר שבו, הכל אסור, לפי שכולה נבלה. Right, everything, any taste that's coming out of that single basar b'chalav substance it's all aser. וכשמתערב חלב זיים, חלב הגבינות, הבלי מין במינו. חלב נבלה בחלב heter. Right. And so when the milk that has this basar b'chalav radiation in it, mixes up with the cheese milk. It's min b'mino. They're both milk. Ukvar pasaknu chatichat manes and vela doser kol chatichat kulan. The lo amrina notin tam bar notin tam. Notin tam bar notin tam no. Mipnei she'af tam chalav sheba she'ya mitchila nesa kulan vela. Right. We don't say it's not barnat because the taste of the milk was from the outset. It was all it made everything vela. So it's not all similar to the fish case.
Right, and we're about to get it right. Sitting behind all this, Rashi slipped this in, right? That Havimim b'mino, he's going to say more about this in a minute. If you remember, Rashi paskins like Ravimim b'mino, it is oser b'mashehu, right? Which is going to be an important thing just to keep in the back of your mind when we get to the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch, who don't paskin like Rashi in this, but might paskin like Rashi in terms of the use of the ora keva and salting in it, right? So they may think that the keva becomes Hanan, but maybe it's not oser b'mashehu at that point, right? And so that's going to be a chiluk that's going to happen. So. Okay, just do a little bit more. I got my place again. Yeah, keep going a little bit more.
As you just said. Heter ad hina. So I used to give a heter, and as long as there's no other milk from somewhere else that got mixed in.
Exactly. Rashi said, I used to say, okay, well, you can't add other milk to it, but if you just take the curdled milk in the keva and you salt it with the ora keva, that's okay. He used to, right? It's a kind of an amazing piece in the Rashi here. Right?
Why would he permit and not permit if you added other milk?
I think he thinks that milk with that basar is mutar. I think is the way he thought about it beforehand. So
why?
Well, good. He's going to explain. So.
Okay. Sorry, cat problem. Okay, but Shaiti Savor, Katamin Bavazara, Gabi Kevatola, Kohen Shadat Sorfa Chaya. Right. Okay. I don't know exactly this case.
This is a
slurp down the kebab and olah.
Yeah, this is right. An olah is asur b'achila, or you can't eat an olah. It's a higher isur than any of the stuff we're dealing with. But a kohen can take a straw, I don't know, whatever it is, and exactly the teva of an olah. That's that toyafeh, by the way, there is understood if you go to that sugya, is meant that someone who isn't squeamish, right? A kohen who isn't squeamish can go and it's and
far-sighted.
Exactly. All right, good. And why is it that that's permitted? So
right. Shmamina pirshat balma below mitzvah below he chalav gamor below he chalav gamorhu. Right. So it's just this excretion. It's and it's not forbidden. It's not at all considered milk. I mean, how do we know? I mean, it's not been matnitin shera sheyanka min hatrefa kevatasira shmamina chalavhu. Right. Since the Mishnah says if kasher the animal that nursed from a treif animal, its stomach stuff is aser. We learned that so the chalav it actually is considered milk.
Yeah. In other words, Rashi says, don't say that the reason that you can do this with an olah is because it's pirsha ba'alma, right? It's an important category, that it's just a mere excretion. Don't say that, right? Because we know from our Mishnah that it isn't mere excretion. It actually is chalav, and actually is a real thing. So, and then he's going to explain, maybe we'll do a little bit more just to explain why is the olah permitted. So, a little bit.
Vitanya nami kevash bishlaf echalba asura. The kevatola desharia mishum delav gufahi. Ela sheyankatam me'imo havale kanus b'me'eha. Kinatim bakara umutar.
Actually, I'm gonna stop you there. I think that's pretty good for what we need. So why
can I just reread it the way Rabbi just to the way Rabbi Landis would read it?
He says, yes.
He would read it like this. Regarding Gabi Kevet Ola Kohen to Dato Yafeh Sarfo Chaya Shmamina Pir Shabal Mahi Velo Mitasra Velohi. That's wrong. Chalav Gamurhu. It is milk. How do we know? Miditna Matnitin Kesherish Yanka Mitrefa Kevata Asura. So because she swallowed milk from a treifa, so then the milk is asur, we see that it's not pure shabama. Shmamina chalavhu. That's all.
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
great.
He's basically got two different stories. He's got the story of the Kohen, which sounds like it's pure shabama, and then he's got our Mishnah here, which sounds like it's kanus b'me'ah, as our Mishnah says. Which means
it's not just the Kohen, right? The other thing that inclines towards the thinking the kiva itself, the contents are fine, is the bit nevodazar about the cheese, right? That with the whole progression of that even if you don't have the kan lifnei hazara kan achar hazara line, you still have to deal with the fact that in the case where it's talking about cheese specifically, it ends up rejecting the notion that just the keva itself would be the problem and switches to the or keva, right? So we have these other sources that seem to imply the contents of the keva themselves are not so problematic in addition to the olah.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that it's not milk, right? Which is the distinction that
there's a conflict between these different teachings. And Rashi's saying our Mishnah is Trump at this point.
Well, no, I don't think he's saying that it trumps. I think he's saying in the case of the Olah, it's not permitted because it's Pirsha Be'alma. It's permitted because it's actually not part of the Olah, right? It's milk that the Olah drank from its mother, right? As opposed to here, well, not just here. In all cases, though, it's still milk, right? And therefore, it cooked in the Or HaKeva or salted in the Or HaKeva is actually problematic in all these cases. And so you can't rule that, although we'll see some more distinctions.
But what Lexi is saying is there are other places where it seems that it is Pirsha.
Good, and this is the Tosfot's going to deal with this distinction when we get to the end. Maybe actually let's actually jump there. Let's do two Tosfots then. Actually, based on that, we'll stop with this Rashi for the moment. By the way, I love this Rashi not only because it gives us some amazing concepts for all of this stuff that we need, right? It's so nicely written and all that, as Rashi so often is. But also like just the admission by Rashi, right? Like I messed up in this. Like Rashi used to rule that some of this was okay, right? That it was just the keva be'or hakeva was okay as long as you didn't add any other milk. So, okay, let's do two Tosfots, Kuf Tet Zayin on our page. Amabet, Kuf Tet Zayin Amabet. Let's start with Kan Le'achar Chazara. Maybe Lexi, you want to maybe you read the Tosfots?
Sure. As soon as we pull them up.
What about here? This one?
Yeah. Okay. Filafiza?
No, the Tosfot Kan Le'achar Chazara.
Yeah, as in like Kan Le'achar Chazara.
Oh yeah. Fiza, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Filafiza, Shire Kevat Nevela. Ella Achshav, right? It's like according to this, again, according to this line, if you have it, the actual Keva should be completely fine. Ella Achshav Nahaguha Olam Hatavar Istor Ve'en Lahakel Likach Kevat Obed Kochavim. But like now everybody is acting like, everyone treats it as usher, and so we shouldn't be making therefore to like purchase the keva, right, the contents of the like squishy rennet from non-Jews. B'diavad mutar defilachila shari hecha diadinan shelo nimlacha b'ora im lo shemechor hadavar, right, hoel ve'liko bo isor. Right, so like the reason they're saying b'diavad, even though now like nahagul olam, like people are generally treating it as usher, they're like b'diavad, like it is mutter, since like technically in a case where with certainty that like there hasn't been any salting of the keva while the contents are in the skin, it's like lechatchila mutar to use it, if it not for the kind of like ickiness, right, that there's this sort of squick factor that people have around presumably the mechora devar, like getting this from the vikochavim, because like both getting it from the vikochavim and the fact that we now treat it as iser, even though they're saying maker hadin it's not, it's like mechuar because like people have that association with it. But really a maker hadin, if you know that it hasn't been salted or left in, again, that comes up later, but left in 24 hours, it's like completely fine lechatchila. But in cases where it has been salted inside of the skin of the stomach, then it's like properly usher because it's basar b'chal.
Great. So far, right, we saw in Rashi, right, if it's salted in with the ora keva, that's asur. Keva, but if I just get the curdled milk from a non-Jew, right, or from a nevela, that's mutar to use to make cheese. On the other hand, everyone treats it as an isur, right, and therefore people are separating from it. Okay, that's so far what the Tosfot has given us. We're going to get one little more piece, because remember I read that the end says v'hilchata in ma'amidin, so Tosfot's going to comment on what version we should use here. So maybe continue a little bit more if you.
Yeah, one sec. Just this thing is weird. The Hachikar Sinan, right? Rov Saraim, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Hilchta in ma'amidin ba'or kevat nevela, avam ma'amidin b'kevat nevela, b'kevat shlitat o b'kochavim, b'kevat kashera she'an kamya trefa, b'kol sheken b'kevat trefa she'an kamya kashera. Ma'itama chalav mechunas ba'pirsha ba'almahu. Right, so like the halacha from this girsa is that like you can't use the actual like skin lining to curdle your cheese, but you could use the keva, right, the actual contents of the keva from a nevela, or from something that the Ovid Kochavim have shechted, or like a kshera that has suckled from a treifa animal, all the more so a treifa that is suckled from a kshera animal. And all the reason is because what is inside of that stomach is just pirsha and doesn't have the status of food.
That's actually some versions actually have the pirsha be'almahu, right? I have that in parentheses. I didn't read it, but it's even to that extent. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep going. So
Ulichor, like yours says, so kashya matnitin datana kshera shian kamya treifa kivata usura. Uchem bright the la'ayel b'pirkin kivash b'bashla b'chalva asura. Right, and like seemingly again for this girsa, we do have a difficulty with the Mishnah that seems to state that a kshera that has suckled from a treifa is the keva is aser, and the bright above that says a keva, you know, when you actually cook that keva, it's aser. Right, and again, if everything within the keva is pirsha ba'alma, then why is it aser mishum basar b'chalav if you cook it together? ואומר בן אדם, תהרי מילי חלב צלול שבתוך הקיבה, דלא חשוב פירשה. אבל הקרוש שבתוך הקיבה חשוב פירשה, ואותו הקרוש לפי דבריו, אפילו נמלח בתוך הקיבה מותר. Right? And so Rabbi Tam resolves this by saying, those scenarios where it implies that the keva is problematic is not pirsha ba'alma, is referring to the kind of more clear liquidy contents of the keva, that those aren't considered pirsha ba'alma, those are considered still chalav meaningfully. But the like congealed contents of the keva, those are considered pirsha ba'alma. And according to his perush, like if the congealed contents even were like salted within the keva, it's not a problem.
Great. So just to recap, right, we have kind of this interesting chiluk. Rashi seems to think that all of the milk in the stomach, all of the keva, right, is actually chalav. Rabbeinu Tam has made a split based on the clear stuff is chalav, the congealed stuff, which is essentially the digested stuff, is pirsha be'alma, right? And then there seem to be other people who think that all of it is pirsha be'alma, right? So those are the kind of the three different opinions in regards to what is found in the stomach of a ruminant, in terms of that a young ruminant that is still suckling from its mother. So, okay, with that, let's jump to the tour, if people don't mind. Anybody, let me actually pause. Any questions or thoughts before we move to the tour on the Beit Yosef on this? Okay. So let's go. We're going to go to the tour, starting with Tet in the tour.
I actually have one question. Sorry
yeah.
to go back.
Go for it, Sarah.
Why? This is maybe just a realia question. Why would we think that the salul is more milky than the nut clear parts?
Yeah, I think it's because when it first...
It was very counterintuitive to me, but I don't know anything about cheese.
Well, when it first drinks it, it's drinking from its mother, it starts out salul, right? That's the initial milk, right? And then what happens as it interacts with the rennet in its stomach lining...
As it's being like digested and interacting with the chemicals, it becomes more congealed within the stomach.
I understood salul less is in like clear, transparent, and more as in like liquid. Right.
Liquid. Yeah. Salul is in contrast to karush, as in not
congealed. Right. But even that seems like the milk solids would be in the, I don't know.
I think the idea is that digested food is not food, but when it's not yet digested, then it's still the milk from its mother, right? So it doesn't love dafka its mother, right? It could be any anything. So does that make sense? Is that
yeah, that's helpful.
So but this is right, also an important concept of like there are certain points when milk gets processed enough, then it will not, in the stomach of an animal like this, then maybe you won't consider it milk anymore. At least Rabbeinu Tam thinks that, but it makes sense to me, at least, right? The whole thing that it's kanus b'me'eh, right? That in the initial drinking of it, it's still milk. It hasn't changed yet until it actually has become processed by this enzyme. So this rennet.
And so the Mishnah is talking about where it's salul.
Exactly. Yes. So, but all right.
Which by the way is a bit of a forced reading, because like the whole subject here is cheese, and like why would the Mishnah just avoid this very important point? that you could do it if it was karush.
Yeah, it's a it definitely doesn't seem to be the stam reading of or the shot reading of the Mishnah. I guess I would call it the shot reading of the Mishnah, right? But it's Tosfot making sense of the fact that we seem to have two different opinions colliding here, not just in the Gemara itself, but also in the way people play out the halacha from the Gemara. So,
right, the
Right. I
Tosfos
think
is
it's like
continuing
it's
the
not
Gemara process.
exactly.
it's
They're
not
of
the most intuitive
reinterpretation.
in the sense that like when it refers to keva, it seems to be referring to like an entire entity or contents, right? So in that sense, it's like the less pshat. On the other hand, it's like both a very neat way of resolving contradictory sources, and also there it does seem to be something intuitive about it, about saying that like there is a difference between the contents of a stomach that feel like they're generally in the same state they were in when everyone would agree that it was food versus things that are like, yeah, clearly digested contents of a stomach.
No, it's definitely it's a very neat and reasonable explanation. It's difficult to see that the Mishnah would have not mentioned this.
Just left out that major detail for us. So, all right, good. I want to read the tour, starting with Tet, and then I want to. We might as well just finish up the tour, and then we're going to go back to the parts of the Beit Yosef on this, in terms of actually seeing the halacha play out. And then maybe if we have some time, we can look at it also in the Shulchan Aruch and some Nosei Kelim, which we may not. So let's see. Sarah, can you read the tour starting in Tet Chalav Hanimtza B'Keva?
Sure. Chalav hanimtza b'keva ledat
I'm just going to pause you just right there. It seems to me, and I think at this point, that for the tour, the keva here is not the contents of the keva, obviously, but the stomach itself. So, okay, keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Ledat Rav Alpaz eno chalav umutar levashel bo basar afilu betzalul sheba. V'chein katav haramba. V'Rashi asru. וכתב שהוא חלב גמור, אפילו הקרור שבה, כל שכן הצלול. ורבינו תם חילק הקרור שבה אינו חלב, אבל הצלול הוא חלב. So we have sort of like three positions. The first is the Rif, who thinks that it's not milk at all, and therefore you can cook it with meat, even the liquidy bits. And the Rambam also thinks that. Rashi says it's real milk, even the curdled parts. And so that is asur, and then Rabbeinu Tam makes a distinction between the liquidy parts and the congealed parts.
Exactly.
Where the congealed parts are real milk.
Yeah.
The liquid parts are real milk. Sorry.
Yeah, liquid parts are milk. The karush, the congealed parts, are pirsha. All right. So that the only thing we didn't see there was the reef, but we knew that opinion existed already from the Rashi out there, and from the Tosfot. So all right, keep going. Let's just finish up the tour since we're in it, and then we'll go back to the Beit Yosef.
לפיכך אם הלך הקיבה בחלבה, נאסרה משום בשר בחלב, דמליח כרותח, וכן אם עמד ביום אחד דכבוש כמבושל, ואם העמיד בגבינות, אם יש בהן בנותן טעם, אסורות לרש"י, אפילו בקרוש, לרבינו תם בצלול דווקא, וכן היא מסקנת אדוני אבי הראש. So, therefore, if you salt, again, I think the stomach itself with its milk in it, then that is asur because salting is effectively a form of cooking. And then the same thing, if you just like let it sit there for a whole day, that's effectively kavush. And also if you use it to make cheese, if there is no tam, I guess, of the amount that you are using to make the cheese, then and it's enough to impart flavor, then that's asur. And for Rashi, even if it's you're just using the congealed parts, and then the Rabbeinu Tam only says that about the milky parts or the liquidy parts, and that's what the Rosh thinks also.
Exactly.
See,
There's, by the way,
here the malach doesn't seem to be related to cheese making, right?
Yeah,
this malach seems to be you're salting meat, and the stomach is a piece of meat, so you're salting it. And then you open it up and you notice, oh, there's some milk in there. That seems to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
Is that was not the case before, though?
I assume that it sounded like the Rashi that you were salting it to make cheese with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it could be here too. It's not clear why you're salting it necessarily in this case, right? It's so.
Right.
Well, I wondered whether that was the case where you're kind of only salting. You're like only making cheese or only making something out of like the milk that's already in there, as opposed to adding more.
Yeah, that Rashi seemed to,
which is Rashi's like old rejected distinction.
Exactly. He used to do that, or his community used to do that at least. He permitted it. So good. By the way, there's a slight misrepresentation of Rashi here, right? Because Noten Tam didn't apply to Rashi because he thinks it's min b'mino and it's b'mashu. So it's actually combining Rashi with not Rashi going on in the tour here. Just I want to point that out. We're not going to dive in.
Noten Tam is like relevant to Rashi initially, right? When it comes to like making the keva itself usher, and then it no longer becomes like once that keva is then used in chalav, he considers that min b'mino. But Noten Tam,
but he says,
yeah,
he says, right, the Torah says im hamid ba gevinot im yesh behem noten tam asurot l'Rashi.
Right, in that scenario, yeah,
Rashi would say that's asur even without noten tam. Yeah. Oh, so sorry. Say again, Lexi. Oh, okay. It's sometimes the Zoom delay gets me. Okay, I want to look at some of the basics.
I'm sorry. I've just a technical question. Is there in the process when you make cheese, is bishul involved in it? Is it part of it, or?
I don't think you have to, but I think you can. You can also cook it, but
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's also in enough. Okay, good. Thanks.
If I'm not mistaken, actually, you can cook them. I sent this in this piece that Hannah Landis sent to us like 4 years back or something like that. Hannah's a good friend too, so it's and a great book, by the way, on food and cooking. If anyone ever can get a hold of it, it's a really wonderful book on all this stuff. And that you can cook it, you don't have to. But
are you talking about at what point? What stage are you talking about?
Yeah, any stage in making the cheese, if I need to cook it, like when I put the keva into it. So if it's warm, or if it just happens when it's cold.
I mean, usually, like with a lot of soft cheeses, for example, like the only soft cheese I've made is paneer, but like you basically you heat up the milk and like soft boil it, like and then you add like acid, you add like a vinegar kind of thing.
So the keva,
when you take it off the heat, and then it curdles.
Okay, so the keva would be added, or the stuff which was before the keva would be added in a moment when it's warm.
Like potentially, but it's also possible that hard cheeses, which are often the ones that you need rennets for as opposed to vinegars, it's possible that the process for that is different.
Okay, good, thanks.
I will say that I do know that most kosher cheeses you get these, I think all of them are either made with some sort of vegetable rennet or made with a fish rennet sometimes. I can't speak to non-kosher cheeses. I don't know how those are being made these days, but so
almost no cheese that you would get in the States, like almost no mass-produced cheese in the States is made with animal rennet anymore.
You'd have to be like a specialty cheese that I get from,
Yeah, if you go to like a fancy cheese store that's not a kosher one, then it's more possible. But like just like mass-produced cheeses, basically none of them are made with animal rennet.
So, which of course, right, if you use vegetable rennet or fish rennet, it avoids all these problems. So,
sorry, how do you get fish rennet?
I don't know. I just know you can make it. So I think you can. Maybe I made that up in my head. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. But so I know that most things are made of vegetable rennets or rennets that are produced in a lab at this point. So, okay. I wanted to start the Beit Yosef. I actually want to go down a little bit because we've read the Tosfot. We know what the Torah, what the Rif and the Rambam say, and I want to kind of just jump to the Rashba. For me, it's like we have different versions, but I think it's like 6 lines down into the wide lines. Verashba afal pisha b'chidushav katav. People just maybe give me a thumbs up when you find that. It's right before the Rashba. He actually gives a citation, Sham dibor machil matnitin, in the Rashba. So if that helps people, I don't know if he gives a citation. The editor gave a citation. Yavni's got it. So great. Maybe Jessica, are you available to read? I shouldn't ask people that when they're
sorry. Jessica. Okay.
Jessica. So
not this moment. I just got back after a job interview, so I need to find the place. but
Oh, no problem.
I will
So,
be soon,
uh,
maybe.
Andres, what about you? Are you available to read? Maybe no, Andres. Okay. Yavni,
Hello?
start us.
So where again are you?
We're in the Beit Yosef in it's Tet Yud in mine, but it's a little ways down. V'harash ba'afal pi shebechidushav. And then it cites where it's Sham Dibor Machil Matnitin. So,
Should I start?
go for it. Yeah, start slowly. People will catch up.
והרשב"א, אף על פי שבחידושיו כתב שנראים דברי רבנו תם, בתורת הבית כתב, המבשל בחלב שבקיבה אפילו היה צלול מותר, דאינו אלא כפירשה בעלמא. ויש מי שאוסר בצלול, אבל שנקרש בחיי הבהמה מותר, דכיוון שנקרש הבהמה חשוב כפרש. והגאונים מסכימים להיתר. עד כאן לשון הרשב"א. So the Beit Yosef comments that the Rashba in Chidushim says that Rabbeinu Tam seems to be right. In Torah Habayit says he says that if he seems to rule by the Mekil opinion like the Rif and the Rambam that says that even liquidy milk from the stomach doesn't count as milk. It's just like thing, and therefore you can cook meat in it. It's just pir sheba'alma. But then he cites Rabbeinu Tam's opinion that talul counts as milk. But
exactly.
But he also adds this thing that it has to be nichrash b'chaya behema when the behema is alive.
Right.
Did we see that before?
No, we have not. This is new. At least we didn't see it in the Tosfot itself.
It had to be nichrash when it was in other words on its own, not because of the cheese making process or because of not when it was sitting in the dead animal.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know how you wouldn't know that,
but I mean, you'd have to take it immediately.
How quickly
right?
you got it out of the animal.
We got it out of the animal, I guess. Yeah.
So, but which is important, right? In terms of like you could otherwise it'd be a workaround in some ways. So like you let it sit there until it's nikrash and then it's but it has to be. It's in other words, to put it differently, the live animal has to have digested it and turned into the karush form, and not so. Okay. So keep going a little bit more.
נראה מדבריו אלה שהוא סובר כדברי הגאונים, and it sounds from the statement in Torah Habayit that he reasons like the Gaonim to be making. He cites it again, but Gaonim maskimim leheter. I don't know.
Is it the Gaonim that wrote Hilchata?
It could be. That's a great point. It's yeah. So
oh, nice. Right.
In other words, isn't it that Hill? Is it that Hill? I mean, if you check, isn't that what the Hilchata said?
It is. I don't know if that's who he means as the Gonim, or we just have like writings of the Gonim that say this directly.
Or if he had a tradition from the Gonim.
Yeah. So, okay, keep going in the Rosh.
והראש בסוף פרק כל הבשר דחה סברת הריף וכתב סברת רש"י ואחר כך סברת רבנו תם. So the Rosh rejects the Mekil opinion of the Rif and brings Rashi's opinion and also brings Rabbeinu Tam's like in between opinion. וכתבתי לשונו בסימן פ"א, and the Beit Yosef brought his like the exact language in that other siman. ומשמע לרבנו שמאחר שהביא דברי רבנו תם באחרונה דהכי סביר עלי, and the Tur concludes that the Rosh paskins like Rabbeinu Tam. The Beit Yosef seems to think that it's just because Rabbeinu Tam comes last in the Rosh's recording, but I don't know. Maybe the Tur knew something else about the Rosh from other sources. ולי נראה שהוא נוטה לדעת רש"י, but the Beit Yosef thinks that the Rosh tends to agree more with Rashi, שהרי כתב שאין הלשון מוכח כגרסת רב אשי, אלא שהוגה אחר כך בספרים. I didn't quite understand this. I didn't actually look at the Rosh's language, but yeah. Okay, yeah.
Because it gets into the Girsa questions, and the Bach is confused by this entire thing here. So, but because I just wanted to see that we have the Rosh brings both Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. It's not so clear who he sides with. The Tur seems to think that he sides with Rabbeinu Tam because he's last. The Beit Yosef isn't so clear on that. All right, we're going to get down to the actual halachic bottom line, though, because I want to jump maybe a line or two. I want to just do this one Mordechai thing and then the Inyan halacha. So, Jessica, do you mind reading starting Katav Mordechai? Because we'll just throw this in there because I think it's really interesting, and then we'll.
Sure. כתב מרדכי שיש מי שסובר דחמר וחלב הצלול כשחזב נפקה נעשה פרשה.
Nakpa, and it congeals, yeah. So
yeah. ומתוך דברי הרשב"א שכתב נקרש בחיי הבהמה, יתבאר לך שאינו סובר כן, וכן הוא משמעות דברי הפוסקים. זיכרונם לברכה.
Good.
Cool. So the Mordechai says that some people would reason that the clarified butter and milk, I'm not sure if chamer here is like butter, like mamash butter, or
kind of. It's the piece of the milk we'll see that congeals after, right? It starts out as the salul, but it congeals later on. So,
when it returns and then goes out, it becomes.
No, not nafka, but keshachazar v'nikpa, and it becomes congealed.
Nikpa, sorry. Yes.
So.
That makes much more sense. Okay. When it recongeals, it becomes pirsha. So we had lots of questions in our Hebrew about kind of how to define pirsha ba'alma and pirsha, which maybe you covered in the 40 minutes where I was gone. But yes, it's some sort of excretion. It's not part of the cow, something along those lines.
Or not even not part of it. It's not food, right? It's an excretion and not food, I would say, right? Not ochel.
Yeah. Okay. From the words of the Rashba, who wrote that if it congeals in the living animal, it would seem that he does not reason this way, and thus is the meaning according to the Paskin.
Great. So this is right. We saw that Rashba that piece in the Rashba that Rav Nachum jumped at, right? Because we hadn't seen that before, and here we actually see a machloket around it. Although it sounds like the Rashba is the way we go here. So okay, good. But now let's keep going to the Beit Yosef. Linyan halacha.
ולעניין הלכה, כיוון שהרי"ף והרמב"ם מסכימים לדעת אחת, הכי נקטינן דבין קרוש בין צלול פשע בעלמא הוא וכן נהגו. We all think it's fine.
Great. And this is right. The Beit Yosef, not surprising, right? The Rosh seems to either paskin like Rashi or Rabbeinu Tam, but he loses out to the other two people sitting on the Beit Yosef's Beit Din, the Rif and the Rambam. Okay, so good. That's how the Beit Yosef ends that. Let's go take a look at how the Shulchan Aruch plays it out. So, we're going to start. We're in Tet. We're Pei Zayin Seif Katan, Seif, not Seif Katan, Seif Tet. So, maybe Jessica, you want to read a little bit more? So,
sure. Okay, so חלב הנמצא בקיבה אינו חלב ומותר לבשל בו בשר אפילו בצלול שבה ויש מי שעשה.
And then at the very end, you should have in the parenthetical. You should have a Ramah there.
Yeah.
Good. That's so good. Yeah. Right. The Mechaber almost can't help himself. Even though he ruled that the halacha follows the Rif and the Rambam, he stuck in Yesh Misha Oser. He didn't specify anything about it. Just Misha Oser, and the Ramah's like yes, and that's what we do too. what is oser there? Actually, Jessica, while you're at it, just look at the beginning of the shach kaf hey v'yesh mi she'oser, just the first couple words.
Kaf hey, so one sec. יש מי שעושה פירוש בצלוב, כמו שכתב לעיל סימן פ"א.
Yeah, I know you stop there. That's yeah. So
okay, yes.
So in other words, who is the yesh misha ser following then?
Then that's following Rabbeinu Tam.
Exactly, right. In fact, it says it in our thing, right, and not Rashi. Rashi would have said that Salulana Karush is Asur.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. We'll come. How are we doing on time? 8 minutes. Yeah, we can do. Let's do the next seif in the Shulchan Aruch. I think that's just continues our topic. So maybe Andres, you want to read?
Yes. חלב הנמצא sorry, we're in the two or in the Shulchan Aruch?
In the Shulchan Aruch, yeah.
חלב הנמצא בקיבה. Should I read also? Yeah, everything.
Yeah, read them out.
אין להניחו בקיבה עד שיצטנן החלב בתוך הקיבה, אבל בדיעבד אין לחוש עד שנמלח בקיבה.
Now read the Mechaber again. חלב הנמצא בקיבה שנמלח בקיבתה.
אוקיי, חלב הנמצא בקיבה שנמלח בקיבה, או שעמד בו יום אחד, אסור להעמיד בו.
Good.
Yeah.
This is good. Explain.
So if you salted the milk that was inside the kiva and it stayed there for 24 hours for a day, then it's a sur.
Exactly. So right, we saw in the Tosfot, right? We saw here it says chalav and imsa bekeva, right? So interesting question. Right, what about the karush?
Well, it doesn't say it's a sur. It says a sur la mitbo. It's a sur to make cheese from it.
Yes.
Why is it forbidden to make cheese from it? It's not. Why is it a sur? Is it a sur to eat it?
But well, take. I would say it's probably a sur to eat it as well, right? So
not necessarily, because read the first. What was the previous halacha? Look at that. What did he say? Eino chalav.
You're right, and so you can't be ma'amidbo, but you can yes.
In other words, it's not halal, so you could even cook it.
Wait, that's if it didn't have. That's if
it wasn't
was
salted.
No melach. That's if it wasn't salted.
Yeah. So what's going on here with the melach? It's still not halal. It's as though you put apple juice in a stomach and salted it for 24 hours. So now the apple juice is fleshing. It's therefore it's asur to ma'amidbo to make cheese from it because it's fleshik apple juice.
Right.
But it should be
mutar.
Part of the idea, I mean, the Shach gets into this also. The cases where like he makes it explicit that according to like the Rav and the Rambam's opinion, like correct, like if you think that like all of the keva is pure Shabbalma, then it doesn't matter if you salt it. But like cases where it seems to think there's a problem with the salting is being at the very least choshesh for the Rabbeinu Tam and Rashi.
No, it still matters if you salt it because that's what makes it fleshik.
I'm trying to be consistent in the Shulchan Aruch.
Yeah.
Shulchan Aruch paskin that it's not chalav. So now when he says it's asur l'amibo, it's not because it's became chalav. It's because it became fleshik.
So, I think you have to read it. I think you have to read that per the first, right, the Reef's opinion that he brings in the Shulchan Aruch, that even though this would be mutar to eat, you can't be mamid with it, right? If it's been salted, because it's now that becomes basar b'chalav, right? But according to the Rabbeinu Tam opinion, the yesh misha oser, it's asur legamre anyway, right? That's it would be a asur.
I mean, the questions become like, and this is something that also that Archei Moshe briefly gets at is like, if you think that it's like truly pure Sheba Alma, then the question becomes whether the like basari flavor that it is like makabel also like whether that retains its status as like meaningful basar flavor that could then be oser something else as basar, or whether that also basically just becomes pure Sheba Alma like the thing has been absorbed in, right? That's like how the Archei Moshe is kind of milamed schutz on those who talk about sort of not bar not ideas with the pirshas. He says it's more about like it basically becoming like the pirsha. right? And so there is an opinion to say that like, no, we actually aren't even worried about Basari stuff, if you really think that all of it is Pirsha. But it seems like the Beit Yosef, and as he said, like, well, the Mechaber, as he says in the Beit Yosef, is like at least choshesh for the concern that we would still consider it Basari enough that lechatchila you shouldn't do this.
Yeah, well, if he's essentially taking because Rashi said it was because of, you're right, yes, because Rashi, its opinion relies on the idea that it is chalav legamre. So, okay, good. Let's keep going with this. Actually, I want to see this in the Ramah. I want to see what he says here. So maybe Andres, read the Ramah.
ואם העמיד בו, אם הוא הצלול אוסר כל הגבינה, אז על שיהיה 60 בחלב שהעמיד נגד הקיבה אסורה. ואם היה 60 בחלב, הכל מותר. ואם היה הקיבה כרושה, אינה אוסרת כלום. אפילו לא היה 60 בחלב נגד הקיבה. ואם היה הקיבה צלול מתחילה, ונקרש, יש לו דין צלול. ובמקום...
It should be ויש מקלים בזה, right?
ויש מקלים בזה. ובמקום...
Good. Before we get to Makom I've said, I just want to back up. Let's just make sure we understand all of these ideas here. Maybe I'm just going to say it out just for a minute because of time, right? So he says, right, if you did use this to make cheese, right, if it was the liquidy part, right, then it's oser as long as it gives flavor, right, which we saw. But if it's the congealed part, it doesn't oser at all, right, even if there's not 60 against it, right? That's Rabbeinu Tam's chiluk there. And what about if it's salul and becomes nikrash, right? We saw this is the debate between the Mordechai and really the Rashba, essentially, right? That he says some people say that that's still salul, and other people say we're makel about it. It's the Mordechai. And so what do we do? Uvim Kom have said. Keep going in the Ramah.
That does seem to be like making a turn away from the way we were like the Mechaber as Rav Nachum was understanding it, right? That seems to be changing the whole justification, right?
Say more.
Because like why would the karush be less?
No, that's what Lexi was saying, because if it's already putrid, then even if it's sitting in fleshik, it remains putrid, right? Because it doesn't become fleshik. If it's apple juice, so it becomes fleshik. But if
is that what Pirsha Ba'alma means? Is that it's putrid?
It's just nothing. It's not food. I'd say it's it kind of is putrid. Yeah, it's digested food, right? At the end of the day. So in other words, you're not using
it. Kanus. It doesn't mean kanus. Pirsha Ba'alma means it's like it's Pirsha. I think it's something that comes out. It's something that's garbage. It's putrid. I think it is putrid.
I would say you're not using it for its flavor or its taste as food. You're using it for its chemical abilities to do something, right? Which is different. So
right. I feel like I wouldn't use the word putrid because I feel like then that feels like it's leaning in the tamlif gam kind of notion, which like the idea, whereas that is like not mutar l'chachila, whereas the notion of Pirsha Ba'alma allows you to say mutar l'chachila in various scenarios because we're like, it's just not food, like at all.
Well, in any case, this is asur. He's not arguing on the Mechaber who says that it's asur to do this. He's just saying b'diavad, it's not going to ruin anything. He said, right? The Mechaber says it's asur, and then he says im hayat, and then he gives cases where it would be b'diavad mutar. So I think it's still asur.
I still feel like without the Ramah, we could have read the Mechaber like you were reading it, but you don't think so? That doesn't.
No, I think you can still read it.
I think you still read it the same way.
Yeah. He's just saying if you use this to then make cheese, so now what happens, right? We did the cheese.
Because the Mechaber, what he's saying, he's specifying the Mechaber. He's saying, well, Mr. Mechaber, what you're saying is applicable, but only in a case where it's salul. If it would be karush, then it would be asur. It would be asur. He agrees with that.
Right, but that's
asur. But it wouldn't oser.
Right, but until now, I thought we were like the Mechaber wasn't. I don't know. wasn't holding by Rabbi Natam's definition. I don't know.
No. See, the Mechaber holds right now, but so I want to back up. The Mechaber seems to hold that the milk itself in the stomach is whether karush, whether it's halul, is mutar, right? Is not just sorry, mutar is the wrong word.
Pirsha. It's pirsha.
Pirsha b'alma.
Right. He holds it's always pirsha.
Yeah, it's pirsha b'alma. However, if you salt that or you shouldn't lechatchila salt that or cook it in with the actual stomach, because then it has the meat flavor, and then if you use that to make, or you can salt it, I guess, but if you then use that to make milk, or not make milk, make cheese, then it becomes basar b'chalav cheese, because the basar flavor in the pirsha be'alma is oser the basar, and that's the problem that the Mechaber is lechatchila at least concerned with. The Ramah, right, seems to think that if you did it, right, the salul, right, might be a problem, but the nikrash is not right.
So in that sense, you're right. He is arguing on the Mechaber, because Mechaber would say it's all pirsha, and it's forbidden to do it. We don't know what he would say. What's the din? We don't know what the din is. Do we know what the din is according to the Mechaber?
No, we just know what he says. Don't right.
It's don't do it. But what's the status of the cheese?
Yeah, he just says asur lehamid bo, right? Lechatchila. So, okay. I just want to do one. I want to finish up I'll finish up the Ramah here because we have like negative time. Uvimkom have said yesh lehakel. All right. So he says no, and you should be. I think the lehakel here. He's talking about the question of if it became nikrash at that point. All right. Or akeva lifamim molchinoto umeavshinoto v'naseke eitz melinoto chalav mutar demachar shenitjabesh havik eitz ba'alma ve'embo lachluchit basar. He says, and also if you take the stomach and you completely dry it out, and now it's like a vessel essentially, then you can put milk in it, and then there's no problem because that's like a tree. It's like wood. It's not no longer considered the actual basar. Okay, I'm going to end there. We've more stuff we could do, but a lot of this is actually a very complicated topic, as you can tell, making cheese. Probably why it's so people go so crazy about it. And I'll leave us for next week. We have class, right, Rav Nachum? Is that? Oh, you're on mute, Rav Nachum.
Yes, next week we have class. It's the next Siman Peichet. We're gonna skip Yud Aleph, I guess. It's okay. It kind of is. Whatever. We sort of got enough of Yud Aleph, I think.
Hopefully, yeah. So.
So yeah, next week we'll do Peichet. I'm not doing it. I forget who's doing it. But you'll get a note.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So.
All right.